The Feed.
It's episode 216 of The Feed, the official Libsyn podcast, the podcast that takes it beyond how to podcast into keeping you podcasting with podcasting tips and information for the everyday podcaster and taking you inside Libsyn. Okay, two quick things. One, during our convo with Rob, we came up with a brilliant idea for a podcast, and after we finished recording, we found out it already existed. If you know about it, send us feedback. We'll cover it in the next episode. Number two, I got feedback about my audio quality. I talk about it during the show. Wanted to give you a heads up that I won't know whether or not my adjustments worked until I listen to the finished product, and I don't know what that is until it's finished. Looking forward to hearing from you all about this, as it is a work in progress. Okay, on this episode, we cover Apple updating their T's and C's and what you need to know, why looking at the 7-day number is better than the day 1 number, a new directory podcasting professionals need to know about, follow up on browser and Android voice recorders. Podcaster, cite your sources, don't steal people's work. Audio Hijack 4 is out. Run, Bambi, run. Pod swaps, and obviously my audio problems. And of course, stats. This time we have geographic and user agent. By the way, it's still April and we are still participating in reviews for good. So if you are looking to not only help out your favorite podcast, but maybe have your audience help you out with the bonus of helping out the people of Ukraine, head over to Podchaser, and that would be over at podchaser.com. Leave a review for your favorite podcast, or tell your people to leave a review for you on Podchaser. We are donating 25 cents for every review left for any Libsyn hosted podcast. And if you happen to host on Spreaker, Buzzsprout, or Captivate, they are also participating. So it doesn't really matter. Just do it. Now, if you're ready to get started with the show, tap on to the next chapter mark if you are listening in an app that supports chapter marks. And if you are not, tap on that 30-second forward about 6 times. That said, if you want to know how to get featured on the show, here's how. Send in your 30-second promo. I'm looking for more promos. I would adore to feature yours. Attach it to an email and send it to thefeed@libsyn.com. If you don't have a promo, but you want your voice on the show, ask us a question or add to the conversation that you hear on an episode, send us voice feedback. You will hear 2 examples of what that is on this episode. Thank you, Nobilis and Kevin. You can also call us at 412-573-1934, or you can use SpeakPipe, speakpipe.com/thefeed. We also have a long-running blog feature called Rockin' Libsyn Podcasts. Every Monday, we highlight one Libsyn podcaster, and in order for you to be featured on the blog, email thefeed@libsyn.com. That's it. I'll send you all the information. It is first come, first serve. So the sooner you get the info to me, the sooner I'll get you in the queue. Alrighty. And onward to our main conversation with Rob Walsh, VP of Podcaster Relations at Libsyn, as well as my co-host, right after the first promo of the episode, Shelter in Place.
Hey there, this is Laura. I want to invite you to check out our show, Shelter in Place. Through carefully crafted stories, open-hearted interviews, and artful sound design, we invite you in each episode to escape not out of life, but into it. Recently, we won the Changing the World One Moment at a Time award at the International Women's Podcast Awards. You can find us at shelterinplacepodcast.org or anywhere you listen. We'd love to have you in our neighborhood.
Hello, Rob.
Good generic time of the day, Elsie. How are you?
I'm good, but I think that you're tired today. You're like you've had a night.
Yeah, we down here in the southeast in Nashville, we had power outages. Storms come through. So I'm working on show notes and boom, power goes out around 7 at night. It doesn't come back till about 1 in the morning.
Holy.
Thankfully, I had my battery backup that I take to trade shows, and that helped me get through a little bit. But it's harder to work on a single monitor when you're trying to crunch numbers. And I was trying to crunch numbers for this episode. So we'll have some at the end. But it took a little bit longer to get to them than I would have liked.
You know what I was just thinking? Could you have used your iPad as like a sidecar mode?
Maybe I could have done that. But it was still, I like having the really big monitor when I do the spreadsheets and I'm trying to do all the user agent crunching.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier. So I probably should have just plugged the monitor in and found that plug from behind the desk and plugged that into the power supply. But then I was afraid that I'd run out of power and my laptop would die before I got all the notes done.
Yes. No, I'm telling you, I actually I posted on Twitter just the other day that there's this new power supply thing from Anchor. And it is, I believe it's $1,400 or $1,500 or something like that. It is a monster machine. It is just there for those situations, Rob. If you want to go hog wild, if you want to just make sure that everything, I'm going to put it in the show notes, y'all. It's called Anchor's biggest battery pack ever. Is a 43-pound power station with impressive specs. You will be able to have something like that. It is an Anchor 757. Something happens like this again, Rob, you are covered.
Yes, as long as my internet doesn't go out, which I've also had issues with this past week. I had a lightning strike next to my house at my neighbor's yard, but it was right on my corner of my property. And evidently the underground cables, lightning went to that and boom, cable modem goes poof.
Oh my God.
So my wife had to go wait in line at the cable company to get a new cable modem for me. So thank you, honey, for being able to go out and willing to go to the cable company and wait in line for us to get the new cable modem.
That's so traumatic.
Yes, waiting in line at the cable company is traumatic.
Well, anyway, we are kind of moving forward from one sad bit of things to another sad bit of things.
Yeah, and this is real sad news. And longtime comedian, actor, and podcaster Gilbert Gottfried passed away this past week at the all too young age of 67. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and friends. Gilbert, you will be missed. And, I've talked with people that know him. We actually had an exclusive ad deal with Gilbert here at Libsyn, and everyone that worked with him said he was like the nicest guy, and he didn't want people to know he was nice because he was afraid it would ruin his reputation.
Oh my gosh. Give me a break. Oh yeah, we're sorry. It's been so challenging lately. Mm-hmm. And a surprise. That was a surprise.
Yeah. And there's a really sad picture post going around where Gilbert had taken a selfie with him, Bob Saget, and Louis Anderson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was, I saw that yesterday and I was like, wow, that's sad because they add in Norm Macdonald and we've had a really bad year in comedy with podcasters.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, man. But you could still listen to his podcast.
Yes, and please do.
Yes, it would be really nice, and at least to get to know him. Maybe you didn't even know he had a podcast, and so we'll have a link in the show notes as well in case you would like to do that. All right, and so now moving into some podcasting news, it looks here that Apple actually updated their T&Cs for the very first time since January 2019. Do you happen to have some insight into this, Rob?
Yes, I just so happen to be the type of person that copies those T's and C's and puts them in a text edit doc, saves them, so each time they update again, I can compare to the previous update and keep you from having to do this because it's so much fun.
Because, oh my God.
But before we get into what changed, I would like to say, Apple, really? You are going to send out an email with a link you want people to click on with no warning so that they can update T's and C's? That doesn't sound much like a phishing scam. I had numerous people ask me if the email was legit and if they should click on the link. I personally never clicked on it, and I just logged in manually and then saw the T's and C's had updated. That said, I still emailed Apple to confirm it was legit, as it could have still have come from a black hat. That said,
Yeah.
don't click on a link in an email. Black hats could make a spoof email that sends you to a site to harvest info. Always best to manually type in podcastconnect.apple.com. Even if you're 100% sure it came from Apple, don't click on the link because you can't be 100% sure. And when black hats hear that Apple or any other big tech company is sending around a mass email like this, they then go and create spoof ones trying to get people to give over their information. I still love you, Apple, but please, next time, just ask people to go log in manually. Okay, back to what changed. And thank you, Apple, for adding in section numbers. It makes it a lot easier to go over this. In section 1, Apple added this sentence at the end. Quote, accordingly, Apple reserves the right to label or remove your content and suspend your access to Podcast Connect if you violate the Apple requirements. The Apple requirements may be updated from time to time and made available to you by Apple, e.g., on the Apple Podcasts for Creator website or other digital means, unquote. Essentially, this sounds like Apple is giving themselves the right to add a health warning to an episode someone talks about COVID and talking horse medicine at the same time, or something like that, I would guess. Just seems like they're just giving themselves some more leeway to put a flag on an episode if they find it not going with current science. But I don't know whether for sure that's it. That might not have nothing to do with it. That's just my guess. The next change is section 4 was added. It's a whole new section. I will not read it other than to say the section is a confidentiality agreement part, such that you will not talk about the agreements you get from Apple, and I'm assuming per their new subscription offering. This is what this is for. Plus, I think reading a section on confidentiality would have been ironic. But for those driving, I thought it's best also not to turn this episode into too much of an ASMR episode.
Hey, you know what? I can make anything interesting. I'm just kidding.
Okay, so section 6 on account and password. And they added in the following, quote, you may not reveal your account information to anyone else, allow anyone else to use your account, or use anyone else's account, unquote. Some would probably say that's the old Chartable clause, but really, given that Apple has added the ability to add users to your account, there is no longer any reason to share your login info. So this ad makes a lot of sense. And again, they didn't have this before. They added this now. So, those times, last time people thought Apple had added stuff to block Chartable and they hadn't because the stuff they were saying that they had added was there in the previous version. But that sentence I just read, that was absolutely new. We now move to section 8. Did I mention this not becoming an ASMR episode? Okay. I will read all of section 8 now, and it is all brand new to the T's and C's. Quote, 8. License. As necessary to provide and enhance the end user experience. E.G. Search and recommendations. You grant Apple a non-exclusive, royalty-free, fully paid up, non-exclusive worldwide license to use, download, store, reproduce, publicly display, and perform and make your content available in the service. You further grant Apple a non-exclusive, fully paid up, non-exclusive worldwide license to use, reproduce, and publicly display and perform in any media your content, images, and other promotional material you provide to Apple for the purpose of promoting your content as available in the service. E.G. Promotion in Apple Podcasts, on social media, and through directed marketing emails to end users. Apple may use the name and authorized likeness of hosts and guests of your podcasts in furtherance of promoting your podcasts, although Apple shall obtain further written approval from you if any such host or guest name, likeness, or identifying material is otherwise used as an endorsement of Apple, Apple Podcasts, or other Apple products or services, unquote. Are we awake yet now?
Listen, that is so, I don't even know. I think we lost people. We're going to go look at our stats.
Yes.
And go like, oh, this is when they skipped over all the things.
All right. So for this section, I did ask Apple what they will be doing per the downloaded file, right? Will they be rehosting? The answer was, this is so they can create a transcript to help with search and discoverability, or as they said in their search and recommendations. Apple said it's not about rehosting the file for consumption. The wording could have been, well, definitely been better on that section. Hopefully they will clean that up on the next update. Apple also added in section 9, subsection A, item 2. And that part talks about Apple may edit and resize or crop your images to fit the design and layout of Apple Podcasts, to which I say, re-edit away my images if you're going to feature my show. Apple also added some additional sentences in section 9, subsection B, that were around rights, clearance, and ownership, which all comes back to, if you don't own or have specific written rights to content, do not include it in your podcast. There were a few other word changes to clean up on the legalese side of things. If anyone does a podcast for a company and wants a copy of the new T's and C's with the items that changed bolded, so as to save you some time with your bosses explaining the new items and terms that you just agreed to but actually didn't read, just email me, rob@libsyn.com, and I'll send it to you to save you some time on that. I will say this. These are the most changes I've seen in an update to the terms for Apple Podcasts ever. And go back to even before when it was iTunes. And if you are doing your podcast for a corporation, it is always a good idea to actually read and understand the update/changes to the T's and C's. And it is really good for all to read and understand these updates as well. But if you're working for a company, you don't want to get fired when someone comes to you and says, why did you agree to this? Do you know this is against company policy type deal?
Yeah, that would not be good.
But again,
No.
if you want a copy with everything highlighted and bolded that changed, just email me, rob@libsyn.com. That'll save you some time. Because I had to do that with a few different of our Libsyn Pro customers that reached out, and I sent them over that just to save them time from having to do what I did, which was sit there and go sentence by sentence, word by word, what changed.
Oh my gosh. There has to be an easier way. I'm sure we can ask our talented The Feed listeners as to how they can save you time to do that too. Just keep a copy, and then I'm sure there's something easy.
Yeah, there's services, but I like to read through it because then I get more familiar with it. Because I'm a nerd like that.
Yes.
I like to churn my own butter. I am sorry. I'm that kind of guy.
All right. Okay. And now moving on to an email here. Hi, team. How do I find which episode of mine has my best day one download numbers? Said another way, how do I sort my download stats by order of number of downloads on first day of publication? I need to find out which episodes are and are not instant hits based on this metric. Regards, NR.
Hello, NR. Sadly, there is no way to easily do this. It literally is going episode by episode and finding the first day's downloads. That said, unless you publish at the exact same time of the day, each episode, this is not going to give a meaningful number. If you release one episode at 2 a.m. GMT and another one at 10 p.m. GMT, they will have drastically different numbers in your stats. Remember, our stats are based on the calendar day around GMT. So a new day stats start 12:01 a.m. GMT and they end at 12:00 GMT. You have to remember that. So if you're releasing one episode at 2 in the morning and another at 10 on 2 different days, you're going to have drastically different numbers. The best thing to look at is the 7-day number. That is the shortest initial window you would want to look at, which is why we have a 7-day number and not a 1-day number in our stats. Because again, most people don't actually release at the exact same time of the day. That's not to say there aren't people that do, and many that do in the schedule and release every Tuesday exactly at 5 a.m. Pacific time, right? But many others, I put it up when it's ready. And if you are put it up when it's ready, the first day numbers really become irrelevant.
All right.
Switching to some industry news. Courtney Holt is leaving Spotify. He was their basic head of podcasting for the past 4+ years. When Courtney was first started at Spotify, he had me fly out to LA so we could meet for lunch. Yep, I got up at 4 a.m. to catch an early flight to LA, grabbed the rental car, fought through traffic, tried to find a place to park, then did lunch for less than an hour, fought traffic again, and catched a flight back home the same day. Fun times. Thanks, Courtney. So, Courtney, best of luck at any future positions. And Courtney is being replaced by Julie McNamara and Max Cutler.
Look at that. 2 people to cover 1 person.
Yes, Courtney was doing so much. Yes.
That's always telling.
Yeah, you don't want to be replaced by nobody or 1 person. You want to be replaced by 2.
By 2 or more. Well, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. All right. And now moving on to our second promo of the episode. This is Just Sleep podcast.
This is fitting given our ASMR section.
I know it just goes right along with it. Here we go.
This is Tasha Glasgow, the host of the Just Sleep podcast, a podcast to help you sleep. Every week, I read classic literature in the public domain. Stories like Pride and Prejudice, Jane Eyre, The Great Gatsby, and even fairy tales like Thumbelina and Beauty and the Beast. So if you have trouble switching off your thoughts and drifting off to sleep, Just Sleep is the podcast for you.
Thank you. Thank you for sending that in. How are we doing on promos? How are you set for the next few episodes?
You know, I think I have one more episode that has all of them in there. I'm constantly looking for more. I mean, it would be amazing if I was able to get those. So that would be really super awesome. Send them over. I'm always open. The feed at Libsyn.com. Just add them into the mix in there. Okay. Here is another email. I love the feed. I heard Rob mention on episode 212 that whenever he submits a show to Apple Podcasts for promotion for people, how do we hire Rob to help us with our show submission to Apple for promotion? Thanks. And this is from Mickey.
Hey, Mickey. Thanks for the email. And simply, you do not need to hire me, but that was very fine of you to ask. Apple has opened it up so anyone can submit. You may want to re-listen to episode 212 as it covers all needed to do to submit and where to submit with the link in the show notes for episode 212. I have sent more than a few people to episode 212 to listen when recently asked how to get a show featured in Apple Podcasts. Now, back in the day, Apple didn't have this open. That's why I was submitting. So I guess the answer is listen to episode 212 of the feed, follow our instructions, then cross your fingers and hope Apple blows your mind and features your show.
Also, Rob, I mean, I completely forgot about this, but we did publish a blog post. I kind of expanded a little bit on the conversation that we did together. And so we also have a post that I'm going to be linking in the show notes for everybody so that you can see how to get featured on Apple Podcast. And we don't necessarily recap exactly what we talked about on 212 because all of that information is currently on the Apple website. So we created sort of like a little companion blog post to kind of help a little bit more on that featured part of things. So if you go to that blog post, which I have in the show notes there, you can go in there and it has all the links to the featuring page or whatever from Apple Podcasts. So you get all of their information and then you can have our blog post there as reference. So you can use both of those there together to make sure you have your best foot forward to get featured on Apple Podcasts.
Oh, well, I guess you could do that too.
You can have both. But
hey, did you see what I did there in that segment? Anyway.
I did see.
Okay.
I did see. Okay. Moving on.
Hey, I like these little inside jokes. Sorry. In Apple forums, I had another post recommended by Apple, and this one was per person asking how to get control of their podcast that was submitted to Apple Podcasts by Anchor. And mind you, Apple recommended this following answer. Quote, I guess I have to quote. I don't know if I have to quote myself. But quote, sadly, Anchor submitted a lot of shows into Apple Podcasts where they did not let users know that they would not have access to their shows. Luckily, Apple has updated to allow you to move a show from one Apple ID to another. What you need to do is contact Anchor support and ask them for a detailed step-by-step instructions set on this process. They put you in this position. They need to help you out of it, unquote. Thanks, Apple, for recommending that and the extra points I get for that recommendation in the Apple Forums.
Sweet. More points for you, Rob. All right. And now moving on to, in terms of recommendations, we know sometimes it is really hard to find things, and especially people in podcasting. So I just want to let you know about this new, it's called a podcast directory, really. It's the Crackers and Soup podcast directory, but it really is not what you think. So maybe I'm just going to tell Bethany that she needs to add another word in there.
Yeah, because I got confused, right?
Yes.
I was like, Elsie, what is this? Why are we recommending a paid podcast directory?
Yes. So the Crackers and Soup, I would add one word, professional directory, professional podcast even. It's for folks who are...
How about podcast services directory or podcast...
That's right.
Contractor directory?
Yes, absolutely. So this is aimed, when would you use this directory and why would you pay money to have access to this directory? Number one, the best person to pay for this would be a business or someone who is looking to create more and more content and really build out their profession in the world of podcasting by not only creating content, but also maybe even building a production business or a media company. So what this directory is that it holds a lot of different professionals in podcasting, everything from voiceover artists to something that a lot of people are looking for, which are lawyers to work with trademarking or podcast recommendations, documentation in terms of contracts and things like that. People who are like graphic designers, people who are there for like editors or anything that of those little bits, VAs, things like that, that help you get a show or audio product or any kind of audio media together for you. So you get an opportunity to have access to all kinds of folks who are vetted and amazing at the job that they do so that you can do your job. So this isn't necessarily for just the everyday podcaster who, is having a hard time just figuring out how to do it at the lowest cost possible. This is for somebody who is really looking to expand in a lot of different ways. You have a project you've been hired to do, and you're looking for all of these little bits so that you can build out whatever it is that you've been hired to do yourself, or that you have something that you've been dreaming up on and you have a budget to invest so that you have access to all of these things. So all of that stuff, that is why it's there. I'll have a link in the show notes, and it is Bethany Hawkins. She thought this up for herself. She was our co-host for the podcasting, our webinar that we did in February, which was all about what, if you're starting a podcast in 2022, what you need to know. She is an expert in the space. She has been doing a lot of production. And the reason that she put this together is because she was having a slew of people constantly trying to pick her brain as to, do you know somebody that does this? Do you know another person that does the other? Do you know? And in the course of her working in podcasting, she obviously has built a pretty vast amount of folks, but it really takes a lot of time responding to people and go here, go there. So this is just a depository of all of that information, which is already, again, highly vetted by experience. So if this is you and you are looking to build out an audio project of some kind or build your own business and you really need to connect with other professionals in the space that can deliver services to you, this is the place to go. Link in the show notes.
All right.
And Rob, our listeners are like the best. I had to post this on my Twitter feed because we released the episode, I believe. We always release it on Tuesday. So it was actually earlier than usual. It went out earlier in the morning, somewhere like at 9 or 10, our last episode. And by just a couple of hours, I was getting so much feedback about what I asked. Remember when I asked about the whole Chrome extension recording? You only have to do your own site, not Chrome extension, browser recording on your side and an Android recording devices. So we got so much feedback on this. So I'm going to cover it here. So if anybody knows what it is, I'm going to go ahead and follow up here with everybody's stuff. So my ask was, I wanted to find something that was local to your own self, right? That you were recording one track, your track, either using a browser of some kind, a browser recording, or an Android voice recording just of your track with the least amount of friction in between, meaning no opening up accounts, just starting to record. And what was the use case for this? Let's say you have found a guest to come on your show, or you're really looking to interview somebody that does not have a Mac and does not have an iPhone, and they also have really crappy internet. And maybe the only way that you have to connect with them is either through a phone, or maybe you're doing a Zoom recording, but you also want to have the best sounding quality and you want to do a double ender, but you don't want to blow their heads off. That was like my use case right there. You want to have a backup audio because you have to have backup audio for this person because they are the most famous person in the whole world. And you don't want to make them do extra work. So anyway, we got some feedback from @Podcat. @Podcat. That is PODKATT.
Is that our first TikTok video we've ever had feedback on?
Yes. This was TikTok video feedback. So amazing. It's in a Twitter thread. So I'm just going to go ahead and send and have that in the show notes as well. So Podcat, you had an opportunity to check it out, Rob. Do you remember like what was surprising to you about watching that little video of what she said about the recording?
Well, the recorder, the one she was talking about, it had two different mics, and it puts each mic on a different track. So one on each one end, one on the other end. So at the end, you wound up with two different tracks for a person that was speaking on one side and the guest on the other side. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Was that not neat? And so that is an Android app that looks to be pre-installed, is what she mentioned. You have to kind of dig around. It looks like some of these recording apps inside of Android are in your phone, but they're not necessarily in your face. So you have to like dig around a little bit. She was even surprised at the fact that she started to use it. And it's kind of like voice memos that we have in a lot of iOS devices, but voice memo just has you. And with this specific Android recorder, which was again built in, it has the option of those two microphones set up there, which was kind of neat. So that is in there. We also had a little bit of audio feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and play that now. And this is from Nobilis.
Hey, Rob and Elsie, this is Nobilis Reed. You're asking about native audio recorders on the Android, and absolutely, I'm using this one right now. It's just called Voice Recorder. Every Android phone I've ever had has had a voice recorder native to it. I don't use it for podcasting because it's simple controls and things like that. It doesn't have a lot of the features that I want. But yeah, I mean, I commonly use it to send audio feedback to podcasts that I listen to, or even if I'm just jotting something down, like I'm in the car or something. I'm not fiddling on my phone while I'm driving, but you know what I mean. So yeah, there's absolutely voice recorders on Android phones. They're just not usually on the desktop, on the home screen. You have to kind of go find them in the apps that come pre-installed. But yeah, there's always been one. Every phone I've had, at least.
Thank you, Nobilis. Longtime listener of the show and longtime podcaster.
Yes. And that one was sent on Android, and it was his recorder on his phone. So that is, again, it was built in and you had to fish it out in there to be able to find it. Then I also had a tweet from Andrew McGivern, who is at Podcast Hero, and he shared a browser-based recording app from Veed.io, video.
That's VEED.io.
Yes, VEED.io. And I thought it would be I thought it was perfect. I was like, oh my gosh, because I know video. I actually used it. And I thought, goodness gracious, I didn't even know that they had this. So I clicked through. But unfortunately, the ease of use is exactly what I wanted. You click a link, you press record, and it records. Like, that's it. It's on a browser, so it's multi-platform. Unfortunately, though, when you press stop, you can't download it. So you can only upload it to the service, which is video. And once you do have the service, then you obviously have to have an account, and you only get 10 minutes of recording or files of video, because you can also do video. Obviously, it's called video. Mm-hmm. You can only have 10 minutes of that for the free account. So, if it's something short, obviously you can use that. That's fine. But then it just became a little bit more convoluted, because my whole idea was being able to record somebody for a podcast, right?
Yeah, and so you want to be able to go more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, you got to do more than 10 minutes. And also that means that they have to open up an account and all this stuff. But mind you, I didn't know that they had a screen recorder that was only audio. So this screen recorder records your screen, it records your face, or it can just record your audio. So that's a really neat solution for doing some really cool things. By the way, I am a huge fan of video. It is a fantastic app for just production, like all kinds of audio and video production on there. Super easy. Then Brian Cummings suggested CleanFeed, which again, I have used in the past, and CleanFeed is a fantastic browser-based recorder. It does offer a lot more than just recording your own track. But again, you do have to open up an account, and not to say that that's a hard thing, but I wanted to take that friction out of it. So it is a good solution, but it's still, you do still have to have an account. And then I got this bit of email. Elsie, to your question in the latest episode of the feed, Windows has a free audio recorder as part of the Windows installation. Simply open the search field and enter voice recorder. The app will be launched. As far as Chrome browser-based recorders, there are several, including Simple Audio Voice Recorder, to browse the various audio recorders that are Chrome extensions. Here's the search results for audio recorder in the Chrome extensions options. And so that I'm going to have that link in the show notes as well, y'all. I click through that and it's got all kinds of stuff. Then he offers Loom and Vidyard are also free video and audio recorders. They have paid upgrades, but the free versions will work for most people. Thanks to you and Rob for consistently creating useful content. Blessings. And this is from Steve Carter from Stress Relief Radio. So those are also wonderful solutions. I did not know that Chrome had so many recorders. So that's another option. I think that all of these are great. And again, this has just opened up my tool belt a little bit. I think that it'll give me more choices. So whenever there is somebody who can't use, because what I would do is like just open up QuickTime. That's my go-to. Open up QuickTime, you record yourself on your thing, and I'll tell them to stop recording. But that's only for Mac. So I kind of wanted a solution to be able to talk somebody through recording themselves on their own when recording. Anyway. All right. Moving on to something else talk about citing your sources. Rob, did you see this bit of news when somebody grabbed somebody else's stuff and then created an entire podcast out of it?
That's called bad. Yeah, I mean, really bad. You can't do that.
Yes, it is absolutely called bad. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes as well. This is a little bit of a quote from the article that I'll have from WeGotThisCovered.com. And this is what it says, quote, Kerner also provides screenshots of what appears to be emails from Rappaport sent prior to his recording the podcast, which not only acknowledged Kerner's article as, at the very least, inspiration, but also requested an interview with the author. The podcaster goes on to promise to give the author credit for the episode you appear in, as well as to promote anything you'd like me to at the end of the episode, which suggests an offer of promotion in lieu of recompense, or indeed credit, for the source material for the 8-episode series, end quote. So, hey, it looks to be that this person who created this podcast read an article from this reporter this dude spent years, I think 8 years following into the story. And then the podcaster just decided to create an entire thing based on it without giving him credit for it.
Yeah, and even if you did give him credit for it, doesn't sound like it would have been all that kosher either. So you can't just take somebody else's story and even then say, well, I got it from this guy, and then recreate the whole thing. It's okay to use a snippet here and a snippet there. Like we're using a snippet in this episode to talk about wegotThiscovered.com, which is where we got this article from, right? We're using a snippet. This whole episode, this whole series is not about wegotThiscovered.com articles. This is an article which we giving some credit that we got or citing our source from. But what this person did was basically just like the person created a podcast about Moby Dick and said, Herman Melville may have inspired this story.
Yeah, that is a little too much. But I mean, it actually goes back to, if y'all want to listen to episode 215, where we shared an article from Fire Nation.
Okay.
That it was really in depth as to how to give, citing sources and how to go about to doing that inside of your podcast. This is something that you really have to think about, because we do need to have an opportunity to share where we're getting that source material. And also, I mean, you get an opportunity to have your brain. I think when it comes to a lot of these stories, particularly when you're reporting on something, part of your show would be like, where exactly are you getting your sources to do all of that work? That's why some of the shows that are like The Dropout, that, was just made into the Netflix series, she spent so much time doing the reporting on that specific story. And yes, there were other podcasts that were covering the Elizabeth Holmes fiasco and everything that was going down with Theranos. But that specific, a lot of the story that she got herself and then reported on it. So, hey, do the work. That would be helpful.
And before anyone sends an email, yes, I know Moby Dick is in public domain. All right.
All right. Mind you, this is a little bit of news. Rob, I am actually using it right now as my backup recording just of my track again. So I'm doing a double ender because I have my track being recorded in two separate apps here at the moment. But Audio Hijack has version 4 that has come out. Audio Hijack 4. And it is amazing. And now I know that you have not.
The whole notes for this section are Audio Hijack 4 is out. And it is the best. That's Elsie's whole notes for this section. And the link.
I mean, Rob, you have not seen it. This is why
I knew I was going to get grief on this. I knew it was coming. Okay.
No, listen. Mind you, this is a really good thing. It's a really good thing that you haven't gotten or even opened Audio Hijack Pro in forever. Am I correct?
Probably Audio Hijack 1. Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right, great. So this is good because you were, I've been trying to get you to get Audio Hijack forever and you didn't do it. But now you would have had to actually purchase Audio Hijack 4 because this was an upgrade. So even if you had the prior Audio Hijack, you still had to pay for this. And because I already had the other one, I paid $30 for the upgrade, which is a substantial amount given an upgrade. Mind you, I haven't upgraded in, I think, since 2013 or something like that is when they released Audio Hijack 3. I may be wrong, but it's been a while. It's been a while.
What you're trying to say is procrastination pays again.
Correct. You would be, yes, absolutely. But this is a phenomenal upgrade. I mean, phenomenal. I'm astounded. I think that this is an unbelievable app for anybody who is a podcaster and is using a Mac. You need to have this in your toolbox. You just need to buy it because it does everything you could possibly want, not only an audio recording app, but also it behaves exactly like a mixer. So if you don't have the funds to be getting a Rodecaster Pro or anything like that, this is the app to do it. They have all kinds of audio processing that you can add to tracks, the ability for customization as to what is going in, what is coming out, setting it with shortcuts. So like, let's say you have one specific keystroke that you want to even just use to begin the process of this whole setup. It would absolutely do it. It was the easiest thing for me to now set up when I'm recording with you, when I'm recording with Jess, when I'm recording, let's say I'm recording a Zoom call that I'm not recording locally on the cloud, that maybe I've been invited into a Zoom call. And so I can record locally onto my computer, and I have those settings set up super basic so I don't eat up too much of my memory in here. I can't even tell you all the stuff that it's got on there, and the ability.
So right now, it's recording my side and your side for this software we're alpha testing.
Yes.
Nice.
And so you can set all of that stuff in there so that you have the level set up. And even I have the ability to, even within the browser. So let's say what I use to do the backup recording for She Podcast, we record using StreamYard. StreamYard does have a way to record on the cloud, which is what John gets, right? Our producer gets that sync track from StreamYard, but then Jess records her end and I record my end. And then me, being who I am, I also record a backup of us recording in 2 separate tracks locally by using Audio Hijack. And so what that does is I have it set up so that I have myself on one track, and the Chrome itself, because it's an app, is recording on that side too. But I can also set the levels for both of those pieces of audio, and you can add compression, limiters, like the whole entire thing post-production. And you can also export it to a specific file size that you want. And let's say I don't want to have separate tracks. Maybe I just want to have one track. I can set it up to do that as well. And all of this is basically already pre-crafted inside of Audio Hijack. You don't have to think too much about it. Every little block is in there already set up.
You know, I'm going to have to actually download it now because of how we're currently doing things. It would make sense to have that as the backup and then using the software we're using as the actual recording. So that way I could actually then connect my mic into the laptop rather than into the Zoom recorder. And then the good recording would come from what we're using. So, okay. So I'm actually going to have to do that. Not only don't I have an excuse to procrastinate, I now have a reason not to procrastinate. So, okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's super amazing. I mean, in all of the stuff that I can't even tell you. You can even time think, like you can have it just start recording without you even touching it. And put a timer on things. It's got these audio blocks where you can mix the stuff. You can boost audio for people. Really simple compression stuff. It is an unbelievable upgrade. I am astounded because it is so much easier even than before. And if I were to tell somebody, you just need to buy this, because this is the solution for having 2 sides of a conversation recorded without you even have to taking out Zoom, Skype, Google Meet, Squadcast out of the equation, and having all of whatever it is that you choose to do, you can now have a backup. You can always have a backup. And it's a one button press and there you have it. It's amazing.
So if I'm going to take anything out of this, it's Audio Hijack 4 is out and it's the best.
And it's the best. Yes, that is it. And moving from the best of Audio Hijack and production, hey, Apple Originals is here.
Yeah, because Apple looked into their catalog of independent podcasts that are on Apple Podcasts, and they said, we do not have enough true crime podcasts. We should launch our own. Did that sum it up pretty much?
That pretty much sums it up. You are correct.
Didn't see me going there, did you?
No, I was going to comment on that, but not quite as quickly as you did. I mean, listen, I didn't have an idea of what kind of original podcast would come out of Apple Podcasts. I really didn't think they were going to go in a specific direction. I was open to whatever because I've been really impressed by the stuff that's been coming out of Apple TV Plus, like their own stuff. It is very unique. You know, they take chances. There's a lot of shows in there that are a little bit on the quirky side or a little bit odd.
We Crashed is great, by the way. Absolutely.
We Crashed is fantastic.
Jared Leto is phenomenal in that.
Yes. That entire series is great. I love it so much. And yes, so they run the gamut of so many different types of shows. I thought like, whatever, you know, I wasn't. But then when I saw this, mind you, the Apple release is called Run Bambi Run. And just by the name, I had no idea what it was about. I was just like, oh, interesting. I had zero clue. And then I started to read this release over here at the Podcast Business Journal, which we will have in the and link in the show notes so that you can see. It's really just the press release.
We are referencing our source. Yes.
We're referencing our source. And so it said, hosted by journalist, author, and Campside Media co-founder Vanessa Grigoriadis, Run Bybee Run investigates the real-life story of Lori Bambi Bembenek, a 21-year-old Milwaukee police officer who was convicted of killing her new husband's ex-wife before braving a daring escape as part of a years-long quest to clear her name. Okay.
I mean, it almost sounds like something out of, what was the one with Harrison Ford? And then it was a TV show before that.
Oh, yeah. The Fugitive, but it's with Bambi. Anywho, but I have not listened. I have to say, I was a little bit disappointed that it was a true crime podcast. And yet, at the same time, I was like, of course.
There is literally 168 hours plus of new true crime podcast content coming out every week. Just saying.
It's just a lot. Okay, and so there's another kind of directory of sorts that was released by tinkmedia.co, and it's like a database and a submission process for podcast promo swaps. Right. So it is the protocol, I guess, if you will. If you would like to have your show's promo between two shows, you make a decision like my show on your show on my show. Let's go ahead and promo swap. The logistics of setting stuff like that can be time consuming. And especially if you want to do it on the regular, it's a little bit hard.
Where something like this comes in nice is for people that aren't in a community, aren't in one of the podcasting communities, in one of the Facebook groups. You don't go to any of the live events. You don't know anybody, right? So how do you find a podcast to do a swap with? You either search in Apple Podcasts into your category and find some shows and blindly reach out to them and hope someone replies. Or you go into a service like this. There have been services in the past that did similar things that didn't survive very long, but this one looks to be well done. You put in the numbers for your show. Please tell the truth. But people don't always do. Hopefully they have something in here to vet that. But that said, I was looking through the database and there were people that were definitely being honest or not understanding the question because they had 1 as the number of downloads per episode.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh.
They need love. They need love. Even their mom isn't listening to it. Or if their mom is, they aren't. So one of the two things are going on. But yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that what's really great about this, too, I mean, it's super simple. So there's one link where you submit your show, right? And you just click through and then you add information about your show fairly quickly. And the other link is for you to just, instead of let's say you're thinking oh, I don't know if there's anybody in here that I want to connect with or whatever, you can definitely go inside of the database and you can look at everybody's podcast. It has a little description. It has the URL to the website of the show. It's got average downloads per episode so that you can see whatever the reach is. And then it's got all the tags. It's got all of your tags and all that kind of stuff. The other thing is that it also has the opportunity, if they are a guest type of guest/interview type podcast, maybe instead of having a promo on their show, maybe you want to pitch yourself as a guest for that show because it's just in alignment with what you're doing. You can do that as well. And it has the contact email. So if you do want to do that as part of your workload, instead of going into a Facebook group and just randomly asking, this is a good way to be a little bit more thoughtful about it.
I scanned through the directory, but I did see our good friend Jim Harold in there. He had Jim Harold's Campfire listed in there. So that is a good validation of the service. Jim is a great guy. He's been in podcasting a long time, and that speaks words to the service. Again, that's tinkmedia.co/pod-swaps. And we'll have a link in the show notes in episode 216, which you can find at thefeed.libsyn.com.
Absolutely. All right, Rob, it seems to me that now we have some questions for you to talk through about some stuff.
Yes, you be the questioner and I will be the question answeree.
Okay.
So fire away.
All right. So this was an email that was sent to Rob. Hi, Rob. I have a few questions. First, Please help me understand what the following means and where people can access these destinations. Libsyn feed.
Right. And this would be also known as the Libsyn Classic feed. People are going to find this at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, plus Stitcher and TuneIn if you submit it to them, plus another 120 plus other aggregator apps that pull from Apple's public directory, such as Overcast and CastBox and Podcast Addict and Pocket Cast and many, many, many others and more. Your Libsyn Classic feed traditionally will represent 75 to 80% of all your downloads. So that's the number one way that listeners interact with your podcast.
What about web player?
This is the embed player you can add to your site or other sites. And when you publish a new episode, you get in Libsyn 4 UI, you get the pop-up and you can grab the embed code. Libsyn 5, you have to go over and grab the embed code after you publish. But this is the embed player, and you can do the web player at the show level where you grab the embed code. If you go under the destinations, if you grab that embed player, that is even better because that will automatically update whenever you publish a new episode. So the web player under destinations, the beauty of it is that it updates when you publish a new episode.
Podcast page.
This is the podcast page you get from us. You can send people to consume your show like the one for this show, thefeed.libsyn.com. That is your podcast page.
And then here's a quote from the email. Also, I no longer see Apple Podcast on our destinations page. Please advise.
There was never an Apple Podcast destination. It is your Libsyn Classic feed that you submit to Apple. Apple does not yet have an automated way to submit like Spotify and Deezer, but we're begging them and have been. It is similar to Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, where you submit your Libsyn Classic feed to Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts manually. The same with Stitcher and TuneIn for now.
Finally, which platform do you recommend to locate how a show ranks by category and globally?
Oh, that's easy. None. I personally don't recommend any of them, as none of them are realistic. I mean, Listen Notes overstates a show's ranking as it looks at over 2.8 million plus feeds, of which over 2 million are dead. So anyone releasing new content is instantly in the top 20% of any category, even if they only have 10 listeners or one episode, a listener per episode. It's just not realistic. But I guess it makes some producers feel good. And Apple Podcast rankings are really just based on number of new people clicking follow for your show, which is the majority of that ranking. It looks more at how popular your show is now, but not all time. Kind of like bestseller lists for books. The number one book right now is not going to be close to the number one book all time. There really is no good ranking solution, nor is there likely to ever be one. The best thing to do is talk about how your show's current episodes are doing for the last 7, 30 days versus, say, what you released 6, 12, 18 months ago. Comparing to yourself is the best ranking method, as all shows are unique. And that's what I recommend. Let me know if you have any questions per the above.
Right on. Thank you so much, Rob. Now moving to a little bit of feedback that came to me not just once. Mind you, Michael did send this one time, but I have heard it. Okay. Hi, Elsie. Thanks for all that you and the Robs do. I meant to write sooner about this, but always got sidetracked. Elsie, over the last maybe 6 months, when listening to the feed, I've noticed your mic is distorting quite often. I think your mic gain needs to come down some, or your recording device level does. It's more noticeable when you're enthusiastic and are louder and when you laugh. I've listened for years and didn't notice it much before. Not sure if you get a chance to listen after you publish, but something
I guess I must have been boring in the past, right? I didn't make you laugh. Now...
No, not sure if you get a chance to listen after you publish, but something has changed compared to before. Being a creator of a podcast about audio, I'm always sensitive to that. Just wanted to pass that along. Thanks. And this is from Michael, from the host of the Location Sound podcast. Okay, so let me give you the story, Michael. And mind you, I did get this kind of feedback on Twitter as well. And I engaged with that conversation as well. So this is not new. And yes, I actually had noticed something different as well. Mind you, what did you say, Rob, at the beginning of this recording, when you were talking about you spending the time to look at the TNCs and like going, because that's the kind of nerd you are, and you were paying attention and doing all the stuff. Yeah, that's the exact opposite of me. So if I can't get it done in like 5 seconds, I'm over it. I'm done. It's done, right? So here's what happened 6 months ago is I got a new mic. I got my MV7, and actually I'm using the MV7X. So I did get the MV7X and I had it on here. And what ended up happening is I just put it on. Like I had a different mic and then I put this mic on, and that's all I did.
Do you have a cloud lifter on that?
I do have a cloud lifter, but that's the point. It's like I have a cloud lifter, but I changed mics and I changed nothing else. I didn't touch anything. And then there was also an update to the Rodecaster Pro settings. They had a firmware update, and I never learned about the update. I just reported about in fact, I think we reported it on the show, and I never took the time to do anything different. I literally just did everything the same. I never reset my levels. I never did it. In my ears, there was a difference in there. And every time I heard it, I was like, oh, I have to go take care of that. And I never did it. And then after a while, I just kind of was like, at some point, I don't even know where to start. It just became, with my brain as it is, I just made myself stop. So I told John, who has been helping us to edit the show, and I was like, this is the feedback I got. And, oh, mind you, it's not just the feed. It's also She Podcasts. I actually hear it more on She Podcasts, because in She Podcast, I'm even more enthusiastic.
Well, okay, so you just said Jessica's funnier than I am. Thank you.
Oh, no,
No, that's what you just said.
I said,
I hear it.
I did not say that.
I converted that.
No. I said enthusiasm and louder, which is correct, because when Jess and I get going, we sometimes compete to see who can actually talk over the other one louder. It just becomes like, a contest. So I was hearing that in my ears a lot more with She Podcast, and I just simply, again, never addressed it. Too many things happening at the same time. So I did send it over to John, and immediately John sent me this amazing video, which will be in the show notes, that is all about setting your compression settings inside of the Rodecaster Pro. And so I kind of sat down and I went through the process, and even with just the first couple of minutes doing this, without not even setting the settings, I didn't even get to the compression settings. Just looking at that, I was like, oh, it didn't even get there. So hopefully, mind you, I was listening when I set my settings this time, but let's see what happens. I'm not saying that it's going to be so much better, because it might be like next time I can go like, okay, I kind of go back and fix some all of this stuff. But the video itself was incredibly helpful. It was from Curtis Judd, and he did a great job walking through all of the settings for the Rodecaster Pro, particularly for the compression settings. And I can tell you that, again, before the settings themselves, like the compression settings weren't necessarily too crazy, but just I can't even say if it was the loudness, because it wasn't the loudest. It wasn't that was set up. It was another setting prior to that was super, super high. And I think that might have done it. So even if I would have just done those 2 minutes of video, mind you, the video is 18 minutes long, but if I did the first 3 minutes of the video, I would have already made my audio sound so much better. So,
and this isn't a good episode to see if you were peaking or not. This was the ASMR episode. So,
well, yes, correcto. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if the sound is better. So for y'all who sent me feedback, and I should have gotten my Twitter feedback here. I can't remember. Like, I've been having so many Twitter conversations in here, but thank you so much for being able to send me feedback about this, because it kind of forced me to take the time to sit down and look at this stuff. And there's something to be said at being able to have feedback from people. There's feedback that is kind of annoying sometimes when you're like, just keep it to yourself, man. You know, there's that kind of a feedback that just takes you off your game, and it's not whatever. You want to let it like wash over you and keep moving. And then just a kind of feedback that really makes you be better, right? So if you have that, send it over and we'll get an opportunity to vet and to make sure that everything's going okay. So you guys forced me to do my work. So thank you so much for you guys for letting me know this, and let me know if it sounds a little bit better. And if not, I will go in there and mess around with my settings again and make sure that everything's all right.
You know, I just thought of a good idea for a podcast. It would be an ASMR podcast where I just read the terms of service of other big tech companies.
I actually had that same exact idea at the beginning. I think you're onto something. And get this, we will leave the mouth noises in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. It's like oh my God, the easiest. That would be like the easiest. No, I shouldn't say that.
Oh, no, you have to actually read those T's and C's. So it's not so easy because they are not written for spoken word.
Yeah, they're not. But that would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I would love it. We'll sell advertising on it, of course, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to make money. And even the ads are going to be in ASMR too.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be like ASMR ads. And so they'll go into your deep consciousness and then it'll make people shop like in a hypnotic state. It will trigger people's insides and go like, I'm just going to buy some pillows.
Please do not listen to this episode while driving a vehicle or operating heavy machinery.
Yeah, that would not be good. Okay, so on that note, so let's go ahead and move to promo number 3. And this is I Know Dino.
For over 100 years, dinosaurs have captured the imagination of kids and adults. In the Wild West of America, paleontologists fought over dinosaur discoveries in the Bone Wars. In Victorian times, authors wrote stories about dinosaurs on Venus, Mars, and in lost worlds. Today, a new dinosaur is discovered almost every week.
We cover every one of them on our show, I Know Dino. Listen wherever you get your podcasts and at iknowdino.com, iknowdino.com.
Thank you very much for sending that in. As we mentioned earlier, we need more promos. Please send them to Elsie. Make her happy.
Yes, the feed at libsyn.com. All right, and now I'm getting right onto some audio feedback. And this is from the A&P professor, and it's more about charts.
Hi there. This is Kevin Patton from the A&P Professor podcast for Anatomy and Physiology faculty. In episode 215, you were talking about how you love charts, and I do too, so I thought I'd share the download chart that I made using my Libsyn stats. Now, what I've done is paste the 30-day and 90-day stats for each episode into a Google spreadsheet, and then I embedded a chart in that spreadsheet. And that chart graphs out all my downloads, my 30-day and 90-day downloads, and it adds trend lines to help me see at a glance what the pulse of my podcast is and where it's headed or where it might be headed. And I've found some very helpful and interesting things by doing that. For example, you can see that I had a big jump just when the pandemic started in 2020, where the whole graph looks like it suddenly got pushed up a significant notch or two. I think that big jump happened because as a longtime online instructor, I started dropping episodes about how to quickly pivot to remote teaching. And I guess that was interesting and useful to my listeners. And so they start telling other people about it. And so, yeah, I had a big jump. And because it didn't drop off later, but is continuing its previous upward slope, I think what I'm seeing is that many of those listeners are sticking with me and possibly telling their colleagues about my podcast. You can see a screenshot of my chart at theapprofessor.org/Libsyn chart. Once again, theapprofessor.org/Libsyn chart. I'll see you down the road.
Thank you.
All right. We'll have a link to that online chart in the show notes. But he also then followed up with some text feedback. Do you want to read this?
Yeah, so he had a little bit of extra text in there. He said, something I didn't mention in my audio is that the squiggly nature of the data lines compared to the smoothness of the trend lines reminds me that I always have some episodes that don't have as many downloads as others. But that's okay. As long as there's no long-term trend going downward, I'm doing okay. And if there's a downward trend, I can do something about it before it hits bottom. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. And the chart is amazing. In fact, that actually goes with remember when we were talking about stats before with that guy with the 1 day, 7 day question thing? This would be great. Maybe we should send him this too.
All right.
Anyway, time for stats.
Now, first up is country breakdown for March per download geographically from all sources. And here are the top 20. United States at 63.7%, Canada at 4.9%, UK at 4.7%, Australia at 3.6%, Germany at 2.6%, Sweden at 1.6%, Netherlands at 1.4%, Japan at 1%. And then those rounding out the top 20 below 1% in order: Mexico, Spain, India, Brazil, France, Ireland, Denmark, Puerto Rico, China, New Zealand, Russia, and Colombia. Now, there are a few changes in March, with China, New Zealand, and Colombia replacing Iran, Taiwan, and South Korea in the top 20. So don't usually get that many movements from month to month, but we did, and they were all real close. Between February and March, those with changes over 0.2% were the U.S. that moved up to 63.7 from 62.9, and Japan, which moved down to 1% from 1.4. Of course, check your stats and see how you measure up to these numbers for March. And interestingly, with one download for all of March was North Korea. So I'm wondering which podcast Dennis Rodman was a guest on. Okay, we are going to get back to user agent stats. And I need to state, with issues in January with regards to Apple Podcasts spiking after we updated feed URLs, and then Facebook preloading through most of March. And yeah, by the way, Facebook has now stopped preloading. And some other items, overall stats are now off, or I would say a new normal versus where they were in 2021. But I did want to get back to these, even if off from where they were before, as to reset the new baseline and see how things change now that iOS 15.4 is released in March. So take this month's with that asterisk, and then we can start comparing to past months again starting next month. So this is kind of laying down a new baseline for the new normal. Mobile downloads were at 90.69% of all downloads going direct to mobile devices. Computer downloads were at 9.06%. Home voice attendants plus set-top boxes were at 0.24% in March. The iOS to Android ratio in March was 6.4 to 1. Mobile aggregator apps not from Spotify, Stitcher, or from Apple in March were 9.9% of all downloads. And the big dog aggregator apps is still Apple Podcasts app plus iTunes and the Apple Podcast ecosystem coming in at 69.9% of all downloads for March. Number 2 for March was Spotify at 10.0%. Number 3 was Google Podcasts at 1.73%. Number 4 was Overcast at 1.46%. And that was everyone over 1. Those also under 1% in order were Podcast Addict, Pocket Cast, Castbox, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Amazon Music, and Amazon Podcasts, and they're all grouped together. Facebook, the podcast app, Podnods, Player.fm, Podcast Republic, Downcast, TuneIn Radio, Evox, although I talked with Evox recently, and they also said iVox. Interestingly, in the call, they call themselves iVox and Evox. AntennaPod, yeah, I know. One person was saying Evox, one was saying iVox. But I'll go with Evox. AntennaPod, Pandora, Deezer, Acast, Ghana, Podimo, Castro, RSS Radio, Mixerbox, Podkicker, and iCatcher. And then there's many, many more that come in at less than 0.02% and don't really warrant mention yet. There we are on stats. Again, that's a big asterisk on the user agents for this month. I think next month we're going to see a change. Again, I did confirm with Facebook that they have stopped the preload, and there were some other changes in the month again with iOS 15.4 being released. So I'm hoping April numbers will really be the new normal, and we can compare that a little bit to the March. But I wanted to get back into user agent numbers. There we go. Now, our AdvertiseCast team updated their monthly podcast advertising rates. These rates, which are denoted as cost per thousand or CPM, the data is derived from actual sales data from across the 2,500 plus podcasts in the AdvertiseCast marketplace. And for March 2022, the average CPM rate for a 60-second spot was at $23.43. Note, this is the average CPM rate for a single 60-second ad spot in an episode. If an episode has, for example, 3 ad drops, it would be 3 times $23.43. A fact lost on one of our competitors when they did their quarterly report and compared their eCPM for all spots combined to the single ad drop average that AdvertiseCast reports, and then said, hey, we're better than what AdvertiseCast reports. Oopsie. No, not really. Understand that, folks. The 3 highest CPM categories in March based on delivered advertising were technology at 32, kids and family at 28, and business at 27. And from Dave Hanley, the chief revenue officer at Libsyn's AdvertiseCast team, quote, podcast advertising is on an accelerated growth trajectory, and we're paving the way, empowering advertising for a growing number of podcast creators that are looking to monetize their shows. As more marketers invest in podcast advertising, we're bringing new insights and advertising tools that demonstrate the effectiveness of the channel for reaching diverse listeners consuming a broad range of content, unquote. And by the way, I'll say this, and Dave didn't ask me to do this, but I know he would like it. If you have a podcast and you are getting more than 5,000 downloads an episode or more than 20,000 downloads a month for your whole back catalog, either one, email me, rob@libsyn.com. I will introduce you to the AdvertiseCast team, especially if you would like to monetize your back catalog. So if you have a big back catalog and you're getting, say, 10,000 downloads a month, a new episode, and you have 4 episodes a month, but you're getting 150,000 downloads for the month because you have a lot of evergreen back content, please email me, rob@libsyn.com. We have a new offering for you. Now, if you're interested in the historic rates of CPMs, we will have a link in the show notes for episode 216. And thanks, Dave and team, for keeping the space educated, even if some don't understand what CPM rates mean in their quarterly reports, on where ad rates are for podcasting on a per ad read basis. Where have we been? I've been to Snarktown, but other than that, I haven't really been anywhere else.
I actually was on a podcast that is all about, this is a trip, man. It is called Salvis Unidos, which means United El Salvadorians, essentially. So this podcast is from a podcaster who is from El Salvador, and he interviews other El Salvadorian people. How cool is that? From the U.S., which is bizarre. It's in English, by the way. Not that it's stunning because of the fact that it's from the U.S. We did a little bit of Spanish in here and there, but it was primarily English. So if anybody wants to hear that, it would be great, because I did talk about my experience, where I come from, my country, things like that. And, there's stuff that I could only talk to another El Salvadorian about. They would understand it. I'm just thrilled because he's doing such fabulous work in the space. I think that after I finished my interview, then he sent over all of the material that he created for promoting his show, which was amazing. He sent out an email with copy for tweets and an audiogram and then an image. And it was just very, very nice. It makes it very easy to share the content, and it makes you kind of proud to be able to do it. He's taking great care to create a podcast that is a good podcast and that brings a lot of support to the community that is just from El Salvadorian folks that are living here. And I really, really think that he's doing a great job. Carlos is fantastic. And the way he just really looking to create or unite Salvadorians of all backgrounds, locations, and languages. And his mission is to explore what it means to be El Salvadorian outside of El Salvador in a globalized world. So he's really doing a great job. I'm super impressed with his work. And it's even better that it's just so focused in our tiny little country, which is smaller, like it's the size of Rhode Island, the entire country. So you can see that there's not too many of us, or maybe it's actually we're the most densely populated country in Central America. I wonder why, because we're so little. But it's just great to be able to share our thoughts across the world. So,
Did you know the town he was from?
no, you know what? I don't think I even asked him that. I think we didn't even ask each other that question. Yeah, I don't think that we went there, weirdly. But yeah, it's great. It's great for you to listen to that show and to know the type of care that goes into creating shows like this. Anyway, where are we going?
Come late April, the week of April 24th, which is right around the corner if you're listening to this episode when it comes out. Rob Greenlee and I will be at NAB in Las Vegas. I'll be speaking on Monday, April 25th at 12:30 p.m. local time in room N259. The session is called New Perspectives for Local Radio Audience Measurement.
Oh, wow.
So I'll be on a panel there. That'll be exciting. The following week, I will be at the Creator Economy Expo in Arizona. That is May the 2nd to May the 4th. Be with you. So hope to see some folks down there. I know Jordan Harbinger is going to be there, so it'll be good to see him again. And there's some others at that conference I know from Podcasting Space. And then the end of May, the 25th to the 29th, we will be at Podfest in Orlando. And then August 23rd to 26th, we'll be in Dallas for Podcast Movement's main show. And I'm going to be speaking at the online training and learning in-person session. So it's an online training service that has a conference that is in person. And I've spoken at that multiple times, and now they're finally back in person again after being online for a couple of years. But that's end of September. And unfortunately, it's right when the golf tournament is for my kids' school. So I missed that. But podcasting comes first. Golf second. Folks, check your calendars and block off those dates now. And don't forget to send in your feedback for anything we did or did not mention on this episode. You can record that feedback and email to us, thefeed@libsyn.com, or you can call us at 412-573-1934, or you can use SpeakPipe at speakpipe.com/thefeed.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And we will chat with you in a couple of weeks.
Ciao.
Bye.